Hi cuties, my name is Hanako Kozumi and this is the channel Nerdy Nekoma. Everything here is about Haikyuu chat stories and fanfic. Thanks for joining us today. If you like this video, please consider subscribing and leaving a like. Today's video is going to be kind of the second part of my KuroKen Angst one-shot, but it's more of an alternative ending since some people thought the one-shot ended a little bit too sad and angsty. So yeah, here you have a more happy ending, though it is still my channel, which means be aware of angst in this as well. Just hurt and comfort instead of hurt no comfort. And a little content warning for panic attacks and anxiety, but other than that, let's jump straight into it. When Kenma woke up, he couldn't breathe. At least it felt like it. Like the air around him was too heavy, and as if his throat had tightened. He could still feel the dry tracks of tears on his cheeks and the aching in his fists, which were clenched tightly around the blanket between his fingers. For a moment, he didn't know what happened or why he felt as awful as he did. Everything seemed foggy and blurred. He could barely comprehend anything besides the panic dominating his mind. Adrenaline flooded his system, and he could feel his heart racing in his chest, could almost hear it. He started to frantically search the room for something to ground him, or at least for a reason that could have invoked this kind of reaction. His eyes landed on the black cat, sleeping peacefully and undisturbed by Kenma's sudden discomfort at the end of the bed. Realization hit the blunt like a train wreck, and new tears ran down his face the second he remembered. Images of a pale and lifeless Kuroo flooded his mind. The memories seemed to be drained from every color but the vivid red tainting the scenery. The sudden ringing in his ears mixed and blended with the memory of a high-pitched, consistent tone, the sound that announced the irreversible and unpredictable end of the one person Kenma loved more than anything. It was as if it all happened again. As if he was right there in the hospital. The images shocked him, as if Kuroo would have died again at this very moment. And even though he remembered the devastating grief ripping him apart in such great detail, everything else was blurred. He tried holding on to the image of Kuroo in his last conscious moments, even though it hurt to remember him so weak and in pain. He needed to remember him, and this moment, the last one they shared in particular. No matter how much it hurt. However, the more he tried, the more it seemed to faint and vanish, until nothing but a vague idea stayed in his mind. It amplified his anxiety, and before he knew it, he was a crying mess, his body shaken by silent sobs. Some tiny part of him was aware that he wasn't crying because he had forgotten the details of what could easily be called the worst day of his life. He was crying because he lost someone so dear to him. Yet, in his anxiety-driven state, he could only think about how he had forgotten the last moment he shared with him. Blaming himself and trying in vain to remember. And the more his mind was overtaken by panic, the more he forgot. It was a vicious cycle, doomed to continue until he might just pass out from exhaustion. What was he supposed to do without Kuroo by his side to help him? Kenma, I'm home. What? The words echoed from the hallway, spoken by a voice Kenma would recognize everywhere. It distracted him just long enough to shift his focus on the noise of footsteps as someone, Kuroo, walked through the apartment. But this couldn't... He's gone. Dead. He couldn't be here. Kuroo couldn't be here. Had he finally lost it? Was his brain incapable of dealing with reality and created an illusion to believe? Would Kenma be even capable of telling the truth from lies in his current state? He heard Kuroo rummaging in the cupboards of the kitchen and an audible sigh when he finally made his way towards their bedroom. Look, Kenma, I know I'm late, classes took longer than expected, but you still have to eat something. Even when I'm not here to remind you. He mumbled the words while entering the room, talking more to himself than anyone else, all while not looking at Kenma once. The latter, on the other hand, found himself incapable of speaking or reacting in any other way than to freeze. Hearing Kuroo was one thing. It felt like a punch in the guts, considering this had to be an illusion. But actually seeing him, so close that it would only take a few steps to touch him, was 1,000 times better and worse. He held his breath, as if he was afraid the slightest movement could make Kuroo vanish into thin air. All his senses screamed at him that this was real, but the images felt real as well. His anxiety and panic, his pain, they all felt so real, as if someone had physically stabbed him multiple times. And while he theoretically knew that he wasn't suffocating while having a panic attack, he couldn't tell if the Kuroo in front of him was real or the one in his memories. And you can't sleep all... The raven had turned around, fully expecting to find Kenma sleeping in their bed, only to be greeted with wide, tear-filled eyes. Kuroo looked shocked upon finding his partner in such a panicked state, and after a second to regain his composure, he slowly put down his bag and moved towards the younger. Kenma? A broken sound was all the other could manage. How can I help you? He didn't know. Kenma wanted nothing more than to fall into his arms and believe this to be real. But he didn't know how or if he could verbalize his desire. Can I hug you? He reached out a hand. His fingers hovered a few centimeters away above Kenma's, which was still clenched tightly around the fabric beneath him. After a few more seconds, he brushed lightly against the strained skin, and Kenma's resolve crumbled. It was shattered by the very real sensation of warmth and electricity spreading through his veins. He reached for Kuroo while trying to get up to get to him faster. It was uncoordinated and led to him colliding ungracefully with the taller. He couldn't care less as he started to cry against Kuroo's chest. Tears of relief mixed with pained sobs as he was finally able to let it all out, knowing that it would be fine. All the anguish he felt was nothing but the result of an intense nightmare, too detailed for him to be able to immediately tell it apart from reality. Shh, it's fine. It's going to be okay. Kuroo held him close, just as Kenma imagined. He didn't ask, just waited. All his words were nothing but sweet, soothing promises and terms of endearment as an endeavor to calm him. I love you. I love you so much, Kenma. No matter what. Kenma's attempt to speak was interrupted by hiccups. It's alright. We got this. Whatever you are struggling with, I'm here for you. You are not alone. I love you. He repeated the words over and over again, and soothingly stroked his back, all while rocking the two of them back and forth. Kuroo. Kenma's voice was hoarse and broke, saying even a single word. Yes, I'm here. And I'm not leaving, so whatever it is, take your time. Kenma nodded weakly and sank further into the embrace. The sobs had died down to quiet sniffles, his breathing calmed, and the shaking had subsided to occasional shivers. He could feel Kuroo relaxing a little as well, and heard the sigh of relief when the worst was over. "Do you think you can sleep a little for now? You can rest and then we'll talk about everything." "No." The reply was instant, and Kenma looked up to Kuroo with new fear rising in his eyes. "Okay, no sleep then." "That's fine. For now." The most important thing at the moment was to keep Kenma calm and give him time to recover from whatever had caused the panic attack. Kenma leaned his head against Kuroo's chest again, who gently nestled a hand in his hair and caressed the blonde strands and the still wet skin of Kenma's cheeks. "May I ask why?" "Sleep usually helps when everything gets too much." Kenma kept silent for a moment, and Kuroo felt part of the tension return. You don't have to talk about it when you are not ready yet." He nodded and leaned into the touch of Kuroo's hand. "Nightmare?" Kuroo frowned. He knew that Kenma disliked falling asleep because of struggles like these, but he had never seen him panic like that over a nightmare. Come to think about it, he is almost certain that this was one of the worst of Kenma's panic attacks he had seen. Only topped by the one when they got separated in a crowd and people started questioning him. Most had good intentions, others were just plain ignorant and bothered by the group forming around the blonde. No one had the brilliant idea to give him space or call someone professional for help. Kuroo arrived just in time when the first person tried to touch him, but before he could intervene, they grabbed Kenma's shoulder and it was game over from there on. But for a nightmare to invoke such a strong reaction was a first. At least it explained why Kenma was unwilling to sleep. Part of Kuroo wanted to ask what it was about, but for now he kept silent. He trusted Kenma to bring it up when he was ready to talk about it. They stayed there, huddled up for hours. After a while, Kuroo rested his chin on Kenma's head and shifted their position in half sitting, half lying against the headboard. As soon as he moved, he had to reassure the other that he was neither leaving nor wanting to make them sleep. He made sure Kenma was comfortable, and even though he stuck to his promise and didn't try to force him to sleep, he wished he would. It pained him, seeing his boyfriend in such obvious distress. If he could just rest a little. "You died." "What?" "In my dream, you..." A sniffle escaped his throat. You were... gone." "Oh." He wasn't sure how to reply to this. A small part of him, the selfish part, was glad that Kenma obviously loved him very much for him to react so strongly to simply the idea of him dying. But a much bigger part was overtaken by worry. Seeing Kenma so devastated was the worst, and the thought that all it would take was Kuroo being just a little too reckless, or just the victim of bad luck to lead to this outcome, maybe even permanently, sickened him. The irrational feeling of guilt hit him, and he pulled Kenma even closer. Then again, he would most likely be barely any different. The thought of Kenma being gone was unbearable. He didn't want him to suffer by leaving him behind and caused the scene he just witnessed to repeat over and over again, but he didn't want to be left behind either. A world without Kenma was not worth living in. I love you. Kenma's fist clenched tighter on his shirt. Kuroo, don't leave. I won't. I'm here and I'll stay. Promise? He sounded so broken and frail, it shattered Kuroo's heart. Promise. I'll stay. Forever. Kenma sighed in content at this statement, and Kuroo noticed how exhausted he was. The whole ordeal had taken a toll on the smaller. Sleep now, okay? I'm right here. I won't leave and I'll stay by your side, holding you until you wake up. Kenma nodded hesitantly before a slight frown appeared on his face. But your classes? I call in sick tomorrow. This is more important. For a moment it appeared that Kenma wanted to protest, but decided against it. Instead, he buried his face in Kuroo's neck and snuggled close to his side. Kuroo drew little circles on his arms and back until he was certain that Kenma had fallen asleep. When the blonde's breathing took a regular and steady rhythm, Kuroo allowed himself to rest as well and kissed Kenma's forehead before going to sleep. Kuroo? Kuroo rushed out of the bathroom, still shirtless, and scanned Kenma for any sign of distress. Kenma was looking through the room as if searching for something. Do you need something, kitten? He was still nervous, even though Kenma seemed to be calm. Where's Kuroo? Kuroo frowned. His worry increased upon hearing the words. I'm here, Kenma. The blonde turned around and gave him an annoyed glare. Not you, the cat. What? Confusion mixed with the worry, and Kuroo walked slowly towards the other. Kenma, we don't have a cat. Stop joking around, Kuroo. I'm not. He knelt in front of the bed where Kenma was sitting. It's not funny, Kuroo. A bit of uncertainty blended within his tone. I'm not joking, Kenma. We don't have a cat. Okay, so I planned on making it more lighthearted and happy and fluff, but didn't work. I hope you liked it and thanks for watching. And I have to confess that I have now 2 more ideas for angsty sequels of this part, so tell me in the comments if you want me to make them, and I'm sorry, but did you seriously expect something else? Also, someone left this amazing headcount under the last part that the cat is a reincarnation of Kuroo, and I officially declare this as canon now. Thank you for all your lovely comments. I always pin the one that was the most special to me underneath a video, like a very creative one, and this was it for the last part. I loved it. Thank you. And isn't this just amazing background music to end the video on? I haven't even read the fanfic and it's making me sad. Anyways, have a wonderful day.
The galaxy is